He stole from me, and I will prove it. The words didn't just escape Meri Brown's lips. They burst into the courtroom with the force of a gunshot. The voice cut through the air, wiping out every whisper, every shuffle, every cough. Even the judge paused for a half-second before composing himself. The bailiff, rigid against the wall, looked up from his clipboard. Cameras snapped in brief bursts as reporters craned their necks to see better. Meri wasn't talking like the reserved, measured businesswoman TV viewers had grown accustomed to. No. This was Meri the brawler, the woman who had survived decades of complicated marriages, infidelity, and heartache, and was now ready to hold firm in the one arena where truth was supposed to reign supreme: a courtroom. Her piercing eyes fixed on one individual, Garrison Brown. He sat stiff in the defendant's chair, a dark navy that was too large on his wide shoulders, his attorney leaning in close to whisper something. But Garrison didn't nod. He didn't glance back at Meri. His eyes were locked downward at the table in front of him, pale knuckles from holding his pen too hard. The drama was so thick you could feel it weighing down on the entire room. The shocked audience. The gallery was packed, every seat filled. Sister Wives fans occupied the rows. Christine Brown sat toward the back, hands clasped in her lap, her mouth clamped tightly shut. Her eyes jumped between Meri and Garrison, as if she didn't know which side to believe. Robin Brown sat closer to Meri, her posture stiff and protective, one arm resting on the back of Mary's chair before the trial began. Janelle Brown sat apart from them all, her expression unreadable, but her body leaning ever so slightly toward Garrison's side of the room. Even Kody Brown himself had appeared. But instead of sitting next to any wife, ex-wife, or child, he sat alone in the corner. His arms were folded across his chest, his eyes darting nervously at the press. When Mary's accusation filled the air, all eyes snapped to him, the man who had once been the center of all their lives. But Kody didn't speak. He didn't move. He just sank deeper into his chair, clearly wishing he could disappear. The accusation Mary's lawyer, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a voice like steel, stepped forward. Your Honor, what my client is saying today is not a matter of misunderstanding. This is stealing. Plain and simple. Meri sat up straight, chin high, but her fingers were wrapped so tightly around the edges of the table, they became white. The attorney went on. We will be introducing proof that Mr. Garrison Brown illegally entered the house of my client and stole $50,000 in cash, savings she had amassed through years of diligence at her bed and breakfast enterprise. This cash was meant for an expansion of her way of life, not for one person's benefit. A gasp swept the gallery. $50,000. The figure alone stung. Some fans in the back row muttered under their breath. A reporter scribbled so fast his pen almost snapped. Cameras zoomed in on Mary's face, catching the shimmer in her eyes. A mixture of anger, hurt, and something else, something closer to betrayal. The day everything changed, Mary's voice broke the silence as she spoke directly to the jury. It was everything I had saved, she started quietly. Every tip, every reservation, every single dollar that I didn't spend myself, I kept it in a safe in my house. I thought the safe was secure. I thought my family was secure. And I thought he was. She didn't need to gesture. The gravity of her words spoke for themselves that she was referring to Garrison. Her tale was vivid. She was out of town for 3 days on business. The inn was peaceful, bookings were normal, and life was settled for the first time ever. But when she came back, she noticed the safe door open. In its place, where tidy piles of bills used to be, was nothing. My heart fell, she said, her voice breaking. I thought maybe I'd moved it. Maybe I'd misplaced it. But no. The safe had been broken into. And the only person who'd been in my home while I was out was Garrison. She waited, allowing the words to hang unspoken between them. I treated him like family, and he stole from me. Evidence in the shadows. Her lawyer handed the judge a sealed envelope. Inside was a flash drive, the supposed smoking gun. The judge motioned to the court technician, who set up a monitor for the jury. The video began to play. It wasn't from inside Mary's home, but from a neighbor's doorbell camera across the street. The footage showed a pickup truck, unmistakably Garrison's, pulling into Meri's driveway, mid-afternoon on the day she claimed the money disappeared. The video timestamp matched perfectly. The angle wasn't perfect. It didn't show him going into the house, but it was enough to raise eyebrows. Why had he been there when he knew she was out of town? Why hadn't he told anyone? The camera also captured him exiting an hour afterward, looking over his shoulder before he got in the truck and drove away. Kody's comfortable reaction. Throughout the video, the courtroom was not only observing the screen, they were observing Kody. The patriarch of the Brown clan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, jaw clenching. He rubbed the nape of his neck, not wanting to make eye contact with Garrison. When the tape stopped, Kody let out a deep sigh and grumbled something under his breath that only the people around him could hear. But Christine's eyes grew wide. Whatever he mumbled, it wasn't good. A family on the edge. The air was thick with tension. This was no longer about $50,000 anymore. This was about trust, loyalty, and years of cracks in the family, finally breaking into shards for everyone to see. Robin placed a hand on Meri's back, whispering something encouraging. Meri nodded slightly, but her eyes never left Garrison. Christine looked conflicted, her arms crossed, leaning back as if the distance would keep her from being pulled into the war. Janelle, she just looked tired. Meri's final words for the jury. For now. As the court recessed, Meri requested the judge's permission to speak directly to the jury. The judge granted it, a rare privilege that held each reporter's pen suspended in expectation. Meri moved forward. I know what it's like to be betrayed. I know what it's like to be lied to. But this hurt worse than anything I've ever endured before. I am here today because if we don't hold people responsible for what they do, even when they are loved ones, then we teach the world that trust doesn't count. Her words shook, but she stood firm. This isn't about revenge. This is about justice. And I will not cease until the truth is heard. The jury was expressionless, but some fidgeted in their seats. As Meri sat down, the air in the room felt thick, nearly crushing. Even the clunk of the gavel announcing recess seemed to be too loud, ringing out like a warning of what lay ahead. He stole from me, and I will prove it. The words didn't just exit Meri Brown's lips. They burst into the courtroom like a gunshot. The tone of her voice cut through the air, stopping every whisper, every shuffle, every cough. Even the judge paused for half a moment before recovering. The bailiff, standing rigid against the wall, looked up from his clipboard. Cameras snapped in quick bursts as news reporters strained their necks to get a better look. Meri wasn't talking like the subdued, reserved businesswoman viewers had witnessed on television. No, this was Meri the combatant, the woman who had survived decades of messy marriages, infidelity, and heartache, and was now prepared to hold her ground in the one place where honesty was meant to count. A courtroom. Her sharp eyes narrowed on one individual, Garrison Brown. He sat stiff in the defendant's chair, a dark blue suit that was a size too large on his wide shoulders. His attorney huddled beside him, whispering something, but Garrison did not nod. He did not glance over at Meri. His eyes were fixed down at the table before him, knuckles white from holding his pen too hard. The tension was palpable enough you could feel it weighing down on the entire room. The gallery in shock. The gallery was packed, every seat filled. There were familiar faces from the Sister Wives universe seated in the rows. Christine Brown sat in the back, hands clasped in her lap, her lips tightly pursed. Her gaze flitted between Meri and Garrison, as if she didn't know whom to believe. Robin Brown sat closer to Meri, her posture stiff and protective, one arm resting on the back of Meri's chair before the trial began. Janelle Brown sat apart from them all, her expression unreadable, but her body leaning ever so slightly toward Garrison's side of the room. Even Kody Brown himself had appeared. But instead of sitting next to any wife, ex-wife, or child, he opted for a solitary seat in the corner, his arms crossed over his chest, his eyes darting nervously to the media. When Meri's accusation filled the air, all eyes snapped to him, the man who had once been the center of all their lives. But Kody didn't speak. He didn't move. He just sank deeper into his chair, clearly wishing he could disappear. The accusation. Meri's lawyer, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a voice like steel, stepped forward. Your Honor, what my client is charging today is not just a misunderstanding. This is stealing. Period. Meri sat up straighter, chin high, but her fingers curled over the edge of the table so tightly they whitened. The attorney went on, "We will demonstrate that Mr. Garrison Brown broke into my client's house and stole $50,000 in cash. Money she had saved over years of working hard at her bed and breakfast enterprise. The money was for an expansion of her living, not for anyone's personal profit." There was a collective gasp in the gallery. $50,000. The figure alone stung. Some fans in the back row muttered under their breath. A reporter scribbled so fast his pen almost snapped. Cameras zoomed in on Mary's face, catching the shimmer in her eyes, a mixture of anger, hurt, and something else, something closer to betrayal. The day everything changed, Mary's voice broke the silence as she spoke directly to the jury. "Everything I had squirreled away," she started quietly. "Every tip, every reservation, every penny I didn't spend on myself. I kept it in a safe at my house. I believed the safe was secure. I believed in my family, and I believed in him." She didn't need to gesture. The gravity of her words spoke for themselves that she was indicating Garrison. Her tale was evocative. She had been away from town for 3 days on a business trip. The inn was empty, bookings were consistent, and life was stable at last. But when she came back, she discovered the door to the safe open. Where tidy piles of bills used to be, there was nothing but empty space. "My heart fell," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought maybe I'd misplaced it. Maybe I'd moved it. But no, the safe had been broken open, and the only one who'd been in my home while I was gone was Garrison." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "I treated him like my own, and he robbed me." Evidence in the shadows. Her lawyer handed the judge a sealed envelope. Inside was a flash drive, the supposed smoking gun. The judge motioned to the court technician, who set up a monitor for the jury. The video began to play. It wasn't from inside Mary's home, but from a neighbor's doorbell camera across the street. The footage showed a pickup truck, unmistakably Garrison's, pulling into Mary's driveway, mid-afternoon on the day she claimed the money disappeared. The video timestamp matched perfectly. The angle wasn't perfect. It didn't show him going into the house, but it was enough to raise eyebrows. Why had he been there when he knew she was out of town? Why hadn't he told anyone? The camera spotted him an hour later, arriving and looking safe over his shoulder as he climbed into the pickup truck and drove away. Kody's nervous response. As the video went on, the courtroom wasn't only seeing the screen, they were seeing Kody. The matriarch of the Brown clan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, jaw clenching. He rubbed the back of his neck, not making eye contact with Garrison. When the tape finished, Kody let out a deep sigh and growled something under his breath that only those around him could hear. But Christine's eyes grew wide. Whatever it wasn't good. A family on the brink. The tension was palpable. This was no longer about $50,000. This was about loyalty, about trust, and years of fissures in the family finally breaking into pieces for the world to see. Robin placed a hand on Mary's back, whispering something encouraging. Meri nodded slightly, but her eyes never left Garrison. Christine looked conflicted, her arms crossed, leaning back as if the distance would keep her from being pulled into the war. "Janelle, she just looked tired." Mary's final words for the jury. For now, before the court recessed, Meri asked the judge if she could speak to the jury. The judge permitted it, an unusual moment that left every reporter's pen poised in expectation. Meri moved forward. "I know what it's like to be betrayed. I know what it's like to be lied to. But this hurt deeper than anything I've ever had to endure before. I am here today because if we do not hold individuals responsible for their actions, even if they happen to be members of our family, then we teach the world that trust is irrelevant." She shook and stood. "This has nothing to do with revenge. This has to do with justice. And I will not rest until the truth is told." The jury was stone-faced, but a couple of them shifted uneasily in their chairs. When Meri returned to her seat, the atmosphere was so charged it was nearly strangling. Even the banging of the gavel for recess was too loud, ringing out like a warning of what was yet to be told. The judge's voice cut through the silence. "Mr. Garrison Brown, come on up." Everyone's gaze followed as Garrison rose, fidgeting with his tie, a tiny nervous gesture that belied the composed look he was attempting to maintain. He moved with slow, careful strides toward the witness chair. The bailiff moved forward. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do, Garrison answered, his voice calm, but softer than he had intended. He seated himself, leaned forward a little, and placed his hands on the railing before him. His attorney smiled reassuringly and stepped back. The calm before the storm. For a moment, Garrison was silent. He looked around the room. Christine, Janelle, Robin, and lastly, Meri. His eyes paused on her for half a second, a flash of something inscrutable crossing his eyes before he addressed the jury. I didn't take anything. He started matter-of-factly, and I want to say that first, before we continue. His voice increased in strength. Whatever Meri is accusing me of, it's not only wrong, it's painful. And honestly, it tells you more about the way she perceives me than anything else I've actually done. Why he was there. The defense attorney moved forward. Garrison, you acknowledge you were at Meri's residence on the day the money went missing, right? Yes, Garrison replied without pause. And why were you there? Because Meri asked me to deliver some boxes for her. Old materials for the inn. She told me where to leave them. In the hallway by the kitchen. I took the spare key, set down the boxes, locked the door after me and left. That's all. I didn't even enter her bedroom. I didn't touch her safe. I didn't even realize she had that much money in it. Pointing the finger back, and then his tone changed. I believe that all of this is because I've been outspoken about my differences with Kody. Meri didn't approve of the fact that I took my mom Janelle's side during the drama with Dad. She's never come out and said anything, but she's always distanced herself from me. Christine leaned forward a bit, eyes narrowing. Robin leaned in towards Meri and whispered something in her ear. Garrison went on to say, it's no secret this family's been broken for years. But now, rather than keep those problems in the family, Meri's elected to haul me into court for something I didn't do. She's trying to punish me for family melodrama, not a crime. The lack of evidence. His attorney tapped a folder on the table. There's no fingerprints, no videotape within the house, no evidence you even approached the safe. Right, Garrison asserted. Nobody saw you with cash. Counting cash, making cash deposits. No, and you've given your bank statements with no unusual deposits. Yes, Garrison said, looking at the jury. If I had $50,000, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in Hawaii by now. The jury laughed softly. An unusual moment of levity in the earnest trial. Even the judge permitted a faint smile before recovering himself. Piercing the timeline, Garrison leaned forward once more. You know what else doesn't add up? The timeline. Meri says the safe was broken into during her absence, but she was absent for 3 days. She has no idea exactly when it happened. She's just making the assumption that it was the day I was there. It could have been the day before, or the day after, or by some other person altogether. He looked at the safe that was sitting in the courtroom. That safe? Any persistent thief could crack it within less than 10 minutes. You don't have to be a relative to figure that out. Family history revealed. Next came the unexpected portion. Garrison's attorney inquired, have you ever had problems with Meri before? Garrison breathed slowly. Yes, I've remained silent about it for years. But there's history here. When I was younger, she acted differently toward me than she did with her own children, or even some of the others. She was cold, and after the breakup with Kody began, she shut me out entirely unless she needed something from me. Christine's eyes widened. Janelle's lips pressed into a tight line, as if holding back a response. This has nothing to do with a safe or some money. Garrison went on. This is about her disliking me, distrusting me, and finally having a reason to drag me through the mud. The defense's key witness. The defense then presented their own witness. Garrison's friend Tyler, who had been with him that day. Tyler testified. I assisted Garrison in loading those boxes in his truck. He said he needed to take them to Meri's. We had lunch after that, about 3 p.m. So there's no possibility he was there long enough to do what she's charging him with. And he didn't have anything on him when we departed. No envelope, no bag, nothing. The prosecution attempted to perforate, implying Tyler was covering for his buddy, but Tyler stood his ground. Cross-examining Garrison, Meri's lawyer spoke in a stinging tone when it came time for her turn. Mr. Brown, isn't it true that you've been having money problems lately? Garrison fidgeted. I've had bills like everybody else, yes, but that doesn't mean I stole from Meri. Did you ever borrow from her? No. Did you ever ask her for money? No. The attorney arched an eyebrow. So you're going to ask this court to believe that you were just there at her house. The safe was just broken into, and $50,000 just went missing. Yes, Garrison asserted, because coincidences do occur, and because I didn't take it. The emotional appeal for his final moment on the stand. Garrison spun his body all the way around, to face the jury. I'm not perfect. I've spoken publicly about my dad, that I do feel strongly about. But I would never ever steal from family. If Meri really believes that I did this, then I pity her. Because she does not know me at all. He glared again at Meri, his face a combination of hurt and defiance. You can sue me, you can put my name in headlines, but the truth doesn't change, because you want it to. I did not steal from you, and in all honesty, I think you know that. Reactions in the room. The room was quiet for a few beats after he left the stand. Christine fixed her eyes on the floor, her fists clasped together. Janelle blew air out of her nose, appearing torn. Robin leaned over and whispered to Meri, who wouldn't look at Garrison as he went back to his seat. Kody shifted once more, grumbling something inaudible beneath his breath, but based on the look the judge gave him, it wasn't a nice thing to say. The following morning, the courtroom hummed with an unfamiliar intensity. It had been leaked overnight. The trial was no longer about theft. It was a public scandalizing of all of the dirty little secrets the sister wives' family had kept for so long. Reporters sat in the back pews. Fans waited in the hallway outside, holding hand-scrawled signs. Team Meri in red block letters. Justice for Garrison scrawled across a cardboard heart. It looked less like a courtroom, and more like the set of a reunion special, gone horribly wrong. Tensions from the start. When Meri entered the courtroom, she kept her head high, ignoring the flashing cameras. Robin was at her side, her protective hand resting on Meri's back as they walked in. Minutes later, Garrison walked in, preceded by his lawyer and his mother Janelle Brown. The two said nothing to anyone, but Janelle's pursed lips spoke volumes. She wasn't here because she was a mother. She was here as a defender. Kody lagged behind last, parked in his solitary seat in the corner, sunglasses shoved up into his hair, appearing more like a man fleeing TMZ than a husband providing for his family. Christine gets drawn. In the morning's first witness was not anticipated. Christine Brown. She had been subpoenaed by the defense to offer character testimony on Garrison's behalf. She moved warily to the stand, fully knowing that each word she spoke would be analyzed not only by the jury, but by millions via the internet. Christine, the defense attorney, started. How would you characterize Garrison's character? Christine paused. Garrison is independent. He works hard. He's not perfect, but he's honest. I've never known him to take something that isn't his. And have you ever seen him in circumstances where he had access to valuables or cash? Yes. Numerous times. He's always been respectful of other people's property. When the prosecution cross-examined, their tone increased. Mrs. Brown, would you say that you and Meri have had a complicated history with each other? Christine smiled meanly. That's one way to describe it. And you've publicly aligned yourself with Janelle and Garrison in previous conflicts, yes? Yes, Christine conceded. Then your testimony today could be biased. Christine leaned forward, looking at the lawyer. I'm here to give the truth. If the truth demonstrates me being biased, then that's not my concern. Gasps and murmurs fill the gallery. The judge slapped the gavel down, calling for order. Janelle takes the stand. Then Garrison's attorney called Janelle Brown. Mrs. Brown, they started. Did you know that Meri had big stashes of cash at her house? No, Janelle replied firmly. I didn't even know she had that kind of savings. And I know Garrison didn't either. She glared in the direction of the jury, her voice unwavering. My son is a lot of things. Stubborn, opinionated. But he's not a thief. And I will not sit here and watch his character be destroyed because of old family resentments. The prosecution jumped. Mrs. Brown, isn't it a fact that you and Meri have been at odds for years? Yes, Janelle replied unhesitantly. And isn't it a fact that you've stood up for your children time and again when they've been accused by other family members, even when they were in the wrong? Janelle clenched her jaw. I stand up for my children when they're being truthful. And currently Garrison is being truthful. The turn against Kody. The defense wasn't finished stirring the pot. They summoned Kody Brown to the witness stand. The patriarch looked like he'd rather be anywhere, but he shuffled forward and swore in. Brown, the defense started. Did you ever observe Garrison handle or receive money from Meri? No, Kody replied hastily. Never.
And do you think Garrison can steal $50,000 from her? Kody paused. The courtroom awaited. I don't know what to believe anymore, he confessed. This family's been disintegrating for years. The defense pushed him. But you have no evidence against your son? No, I don't. The prosecution took over then, redirecting the line of questioning in a surprising way. Mr. Brown, was there tension between Garrison and Meri in the past? Yes, Kody confessed. And have you ever stepped in to try to get them to work out their problems? Kody gave a humorless laugh. I've tried, but in this family everyone's keeping score. Every slight, every argument, it all gets stored away. So now we're here. Secrets spilled in public. By midday, the trial had shifted from theft to full-on therapy session in front of a jury. Old grievances were brought up. Times Meri had felt left out. Times Garrison had dissed her online. Times Kody hadn't intervened as a father figure. The more everyone chatted, the more it was apparent that missing $50,000 was just the spark. The fire had been burning for years. For a moment Robin was heard telling Meri, under her breath, they're trying to make you go crazy. Meri clenched her jaw tightly, but remained mute. Across Christine leaned over toward Janelle and whispered, just what they wanted, a circus in the public eye. The jury watches closely. The whole time the jury was impassive, but they observed all of the exchanges. The way Meri didn't look at Garrison, the way Janelle's hand guarded her son's shoulder, the way Kody looked almost physically ill in the company of his own family. The forewoman, a middle-aged woman wearing a navy blazer, scribbled furiously in her notebook. Some of the jurors hunched forward during family testimony, as if attempting to read between the lines. They weren't merely considering the evidence, they were observing the dynamics. The judge's warning. By late afternoon, the judge had endured a lifetime's worth of bickering. This is a court of law, he reminded them all gruffly. Not a reality show stage. If any more irrelevant personal complaints are introduced without direct relevance to the case, I will empty this courtroom. The room was silent. Even the journalist paused typing for a moment. A family that can't go back as court recessed for the day. Nobody departed en masse. Meri exited with Robin, without answering reporters' questions. Garrison and Janelle filed out through a side door, followed by supporters waving "We believe you" signs. Christine remained behind to talk softly to Garrison's attorney. And Kody, he made his exit through the back, dodging both sides altogether. The split was no longer merely visible, it was permanent. Whatever the verdict might be, one thing had already been resolved: the Brown family would never again be whole. The air in the courtroom was so motionless, it seemed that even the walls were breathing patiently. The jury had departed hours ago, and each tick of the clock served as a drumbeat of doomsday. Meri clung to the edge of her table, her trembling hands holding on as if she could keep herself tied to whatever threatened her. Garrison sat beside his attorney, his eyes fixed straight ahead, no blink, no emotion, just static. But beneath the surface, you knew the tempest raged. Behind him sat Kody, fingers interlaced tightly, jaws clenched like granite. He was a father in the middle of it all, but the question remained, was he really impartial, or did he know already how this would play out? The door opened, the jury filed in, their faces unreadable. Meri's heart pounded in her ears. She could feel the heat in her cheeks, the dryness in her mouth. Christine reached forward from the gallery, and placed a hand over her mouth, as if holding in a scream. The judge's voice cut through the tension. Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict? One of the women in the front row of the jury nodded. Yes, Your Honor. She rose from her seat, clutching a sheet of paper, her eyes alternating between Meri and Garrison. The silence was agonizing. In the matter of Meri Brown against Garrison Brown, on the accusation of theft, we find the defendant. The foreperson's voice hesitated for an instant, and then it was out, crisp and definitive, not guilty. Gasps filled the gallery. Robin clapped her hand over her mouth. Janelle shook her head. Meri stood there, frozen, the words cutting through her like a knife. Garrison's attorney patted him on the back, but Garrison didn't smile. He turned his head, for the first time that day, and locked eyes with Meri. His eyes were cold, but not with guilt, with something more. Meri, he whispered softly, just loudly enough for her to hear.
I didn't steal your money, but you stole something from me many years ago. And then he went out, past the reporters, past his dad, past the looks of the whole family. Meri sat there, dazed, as the judge adjourned court. Footsteps and the shuffling of papers filled the room. But to her, they were all just muffled noises. Her world had changed, not only because she had lost the case, but because the family divide had just been cut even deeper. Kody walked up to her slowly. "You didn't lose just in court today," he told her, with that low, biting tone. "You lost him forever." Meri didn't say a word. She just picked up her papers, stood, and left, her heels clacking against the chilly tile, as the camera flashes trailed behind her into the blinding light. The case was done. But the war had just started.